Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside 1985 Deadly Northern Lights. This is a game designed by Fabrizio Vianello and published by Thin Red Line Games. This is the second in the ongoing World War III series from Thin Red Line Games that Fabrizio has been doing. First one was 1985 Under an Iron Sky. It is a big monster game. This is just as big, actually a little smaller maybe. The force count may be a little smaller because you're not dealing with the Central European front, but still definitely a big game. You're going to need a lot of space. And if you've been paying attention to Kev Sharp over on the big board, he's been doing a lot of coverage for this game. Designer's notes as well as unboxing. He did the first unboxing. He's really been pushing this game really hard, which is great to see the coverage he's brought to the table. I got a copy of it, and now I want to share a little bit of a look inside with you as well. So that way everybody gets a look at the entire game. But definitely go to Kev's page and check his stuff out. He's done a great job at covering not only the game itself, but the gameplay also. There is no back of the box here, but I will read to you what this game's all about. It says 1985 Deadly Northern Lights covers the Warsaw Pact offensive against the Nordic countries during the dramatic events of World War III. Norway, Sweden, Finland, and insular Denmark are in the crosshair, facing the full might of the Northern Fleet, Baltic Fleet, and 2 Soviet military districts. Both sides have only a fraction of the ground forces available in the Central European front and must overcome the problems dictated by scarce lines of communication and by the harsh environment. Every aspect of a modern aero-naval campaign is covered. Naval and air combat, electronic warfare, nuclear and chemical weapons, special forces, standoff strikes, supply convoys, coastal defenses, mine warfare, amphibious invasions, and more. The game comes with 3 39 by 26 inch maps that cover Scandinavia and surrounding areas, 1,700 counters, 45-page rulebook, 40-page scenario book with designer's notes, 2 table booklets, 8 player aid charts, and 2 20-sided dice. So let's take a look inside and see what you get. Get our TD20 and our baggies, our rule book, scenario book, player aids, counter sheets, and our maps. So let's set up the maps and take a closer look at the game. All right, so we'll take a look at the maps that come with the game. Trying to show you the entire map area is a little bit of an ambitious undertaking with my current setup, so I'm not going to show you the entire layout for the campaign, but you'll get a sense of it here by the size of the maps themselves. Just the 2 main sections I have down here that are connected. These are all extra pieces that will go out to fill out the rest of the map. But this is the northern portion of Finland and Norway on this map. This map gives you the southern part of Sweden, Denmark, and the northwestern tip of East Germany. And then we also have Poland down here. And then we have Norway and Sweden here on this map, and this will go kind of in the middle of these other maps. And you can see the Norwegian Sea here. And then the bulk of the map is going to be Norway, Sweden, and then you have part of Finland over on the right-hand side. You can see how big the map is itself. And the cool part about it is, I wanted to separate this. You see how you've got this little border here. That is going to tell you where you're going to lay the map on top of. So it makes it easier to know where your borders are and to know where to lay your maps on top of each other, because you can put this together with 1985 Under an Iron Sky to make the entire area of operations for World War III that is built so far into this system. You'll definitely need a con for that, and you'll definitely need a lot of space, but beautiful maps, and they're really thick too. They're not paper, I mean, they're paper maps, but they're thicker than you'd expect, just a little bit, and they have a really cool coating on it. I'm not sure what it is, but it's got kind of a slickness to it, and it seems like it's going to be a little more spill resistant than a regular paper map will be, so that's great to see. And the graphics on the maps are beautifully done. I really like the overall aesthetic that it puts on the table. The one thing I do notice is, maybe because of my older eyes, I don't know, but some of these towns are a little harder to read because they're written in a darker ink, and when you get down there to the map, you're going to have to be close to look at some of the areas or know your geography really well. It's not a detractor from the game, but I kind of wish they had gone maybe with a lighter, maybe a white or gray or something that stood out more for the different cities and towns, so that way it was easier to pick them up and know where they are. But overall, fantastic production on the map, and it looks like it's going to give you a very expansive area of operations for this battle, and really looks like it's going to be a beautiful presentation on the table. And we'll take a look at the play rates that come with the game. For the Warsaw Pact, we have our base sheet, naval display sheet, and the lines of communication that the Warsaw Pact will be using in the game. And likewise for the NATO forces, you get 2 sheets of bases, a sheet for the naval display, the lines of communication for the NATO forces in the game, and then we get the general turn, track, and movement points modifier track. The game also comes with 2 table booklets, one for each side. You have your terrain effects chart on this sheet. On the back of the booklet is the unit legend. And on the inside, we have a pretty exhaustive list of tables that you'll be using for different aspects of combat in the game. As you can see here, just flipping through them, no need to look at each one of them individually, but plenty of tables in this booklet. And we'll take a look at the counter sheets that come with the game. We have a lot of admin counters here on the first couple of sheets, along with some Soviet forces. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is nice thick counters. I mean, this chipboard is really good. The only thing I wasn't a fan of with Under an Iron Sky, and this looks like it follows suit on, is the die cuts are not all the way to the edge. So it will either require you to peel them off or to cut them with an X-Acto knife. But if you're going to be clipping your counters, which most likely you're going to because you're going to have some nibs on the ends of these, it won't be as big a deal. But just keep that in mind when you look at these counter sheets. We've got some Soviet forces, Polish and East German forces. More Soviets, of course, the Red Hordes. And we've got British, US, and West German forces on this sheet. And we've got some Canadian, Danish, French, Norwegian, and Swedish forces on the last sheet. And we'll take a look at the rules. It is a 42-page rulebook. On the inside of the front cover, you're going to have your combination table of contents and index, which is going to list out all of the different rules and where to find them, which you're going to need because there's a lot of rules in this game. You're going to definitely be referring to the rulebook throughout. Introduction, game equipment, playing pieces, general rules, and then we get into the sequence of play. Let's add all the phases for the sequence of play. And we get to land movement, limited intelligence, stacking, zones of control, ground combat, small-scale combat, standard assault, column assault, single echelon assault, and assault from march are only for Warsaw Pact, disengagement combat, concentric assault bonus, combat modifications, combat results for assault, retreat after combat, combat casualties, breakthroughs, advance after combat, pursuit, active defense, and core reserves are only for NATO. Then we get into fluid combat, combat steps, electronic warfare is also covered. The cadre rate is interesting because in the real world, you have units that are, they're considered great, elite, or whatever. Everybody has like an assumption as to what their combat strength would be, but that's not known until they actually are in combat. And that's what the cadre rating reflects. This unit may, I'm just going to throw out a number, may be worth a 3 combat, factor. It does really good. So now it's a 4 combat factor. Likewise, you may have an elite unit which just say has a 5 combat factor. It doesn't do so good. Now it's down to a 4. So that cadre rating is a really good way of showing the flux of combat and how units will respond. It's not always a straight math problem because the human factor gets in the way, and that does change things out from just being a simple equation to being a lot more complex. Then you get into supply and all the aspects of supply, which will be, I would expect, pretty detailed, being that this game is a pretty large game. Railroad regiments, breakdown and recombination, artillery units, flak units, headquarters, combat engineers for Warsaw Pact only, lines of communication, that's what we were looking at before on that map. Standard reinforcement arrivals, Soviet reinforcements, Canadian reinforcements, units from the continental United States. And we have the air replacements for Warsaw Pact only, external events, GI UK front, Greenland, Iceland, UK, and the Schleswig-Holstein front, which is a strip of territory that would have allowed Warsaw Pact to isolate Denmark and make NATO access to the Baltic problematic. So pretty critical aspects of the game right there. And then you have Finland front, weather, which is optional. And we have chemical warfare, nuclear warfare, and strategic escalation, which are all optional rules. And then we get into the air war, which is going to cover several pages, I'm going to assume, because there's a lot of area to cover here with air, ground support missions, seed missions, wild weasels, air transports, airdrop, air resupply. Then we get into naval strikes and intercept missions, intercept combat sequence, ECM squadrons, stealth squadrons, and then helicopters. So that is all fixed wing prior to that. Then we get into rotary with the helicopters here. Then we have bases, off-map bases, garrison bases. Then we get into the naval aspect of the game for the naval warfare. Surveillance areas, naval interception sequence, naval combat, missile combat, ASW combat, gun combat, convoys, coastal batteries, carrier battle groups, Danish ferries, Alpine units, Arctic infantry, special forces. Those are all optional. You don't have to use them if you don't want to. Get into your transport costs, and then finally finish out the rulebook with bridges, repair, and neutral countries on page 42. And we'll take a look at the scenario book that comes with the game. It is a 39-page book. Inside the front cover, you're going to have your combination table of contents index here. That's going to allow you to more easily look up what it is you need to find. You have your additional rules. If you think that the base game does not have enough, or you want to add some more flavor, you've got some additional rules here that you can use to spice things up a little more. Then we get to the first of the 4 scenarios in the game. There's also a campaign at the end. It gives you a little bit of a backstory for the scenario, gives you the orders of battle for both sides, what units go where, and then also tells you the start date, location, and the length of the game. This one is 5 turns, and the area of play, which is map D. And like I said before, I didn't have enough room to show you all the maps in one spot here on my table because the field of view is not going to get it all in there unless I kind of change up my game area. But you don't have to have all of the map sections together for every scenario. That will be for the campaign. For each of the scenarios, you're going to have 1 or 2, maybe 3 maps, so it is a lot more manageable in your game space. And then get the rest of the scenario rules, the victory conditions. Then we get to the Baltic Will Tell, which is scenario 2. That uses map G, map H for Sea of Trouble, scenario 3. Then we have maps D, E, and F for scenario 4. So now you're going to be using a little bit more space, or actually a lot more space. And then we get to the campaign 1, which is the Nordic Balance, which uses the entire map sections together in one campaign, 25 turn length. So you can see the order of battle, pretty big for this one. So definitely going to need a convention, I think, for that. Or if you've got, somebody's got a nice basement area he could set this up at and let it sit there for a while, you can use that. Then you have your designer's notes from Fabrizio. Pretty good amount of designer's notes. And then Anthony Morfett gives his developer's notes, as does Ulf Kron. And that is the end of the scenario book. And that is a look at everything you get inside of 1985 Deadly Northern Lights, a game designed by Fabrizio Vianello and published by Thin Red Line Games. And as I said before, this is the second in the series. First one was 1985 Under an Iron Sky. This one continues it on with the Northern Front in Scandinavia. So if you have that base game, you can expand on it with this. If you didn't get the first one and you can't get a copy of that because maybe it's sold out, I think it is sold out right now. You can get it on the secondary market, but if you missed out on the first one, don't miss out on this one. They're very small print runs. I think they actually did 2 print runs on the first one because they made a couple of alterations to the rule book from the first initial printing, a couple corrections. But if you missed out on that, you're definitely going to want to pick up this because you don't want to miss out on it again, because I'm not sure if they're going to do a second print or not. It's a small publisher. They spent a lot of time and effort getting their games done, and then they put them out in small print runs. I think only 400 copies at a time. So don't miss out, because you never know if it may take years to get any of these reprinted. And there's also another system from Thin Red Line Games, the C3 system. The first game in that one is less than 60 miles. That drills down to the ground level and really hits C3 pretty hard, command control communications, and really explores that in more detail. And Kev Sharp has talked about that game. He says that leans more towards simulation than this. This is more game than simulation, although you can see by the rulebook it's pretty expansive. It looks like it's going to be pretty detailed and lean heavy on simulation, but he feels it gives you more of a game feel, which is great. If you are looking for that game simulation combination, this looks like it'll be the winner for you. And I'll add a side note here. This is from 1985 Under an Iron Sky. I'm using these old Europa trays because there's so many counters in this game, 1,700 counters in this game. I believe the same for Under an Iron Sky, that you're going to need a lot of storage space, especially if you want to break your units down. I've even started making some tray dividers here so I can further break down units. I'm just in the process still of sorting them. These have been stored like this, not really sorted out yet in a really good degree, and they still have to be clipped. So I'm working on that for Under an Iron Sky, and I'll be doing the same for 1985 Deadly Northern Lights. And like I said, using the counter tray dividers to make it a little easier to try to combine into fewer trays to make storage and retrieval a little easier during the game. But that's just a little side note. If anybody wants those tray dividers, let me know and I can send you the file that I have and share that with you so that way you can do the same if you've got these trays. But I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.